Welcome to MLSsoccer.com's Playoff Central presented by Samsung Galaxy with Corey Gibbs and Simon Borg. I'm Jason Skinny. We're on our fourth day of bringing you the live pregame and postgame shows for the MLS Cup playoffs. We are thrilled to be doing so. Of course, we are here now for the New York at Houston game. That game will be airing on the NBC network at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Guys, we've seen the way that this playoffs is unfolding. When you take a look at the bracket, Houston Dynamo advancing to the knockout round, getting the New York Red Bulls now the #1 overall seed in the playoffs, the Supporter Shield winners. And when you look now at the season series for these teams, you might wonder why they're even playing this series. The Houston Dynamo going 0-3 against the Red Bulls in the regular season, losing 2 games at home. But we said it the other night, now that Houston has advanced to play the Red Bulls, we think there might actually be a series here. It might be closer than certain people think, but one of the things that Houston has going against them now is they have to play this game at home without their head coach, Dominic Kinnear.
Dominic Kinnear suspended for encroaching the field, for leaving his technical area in that finale. After that kick to Kofi Sarkodie, there was a little fracas that erupted there, and I think Dominic Kinnear sensed one or two of his players might be involved there. It wasn't calming down, so he makes his way down the sideline and makes sure he gets in his player's ear. There you see him coming over and making sure Corey Ash calms down, because Dominic Kinnear has been in this situation. I think he did the right thing. With your player, a potential big-time suspensions coming to important starters, you go, even if you have to sacrifice yourself. Kinnear knew the rule. You leave your technical area, you're going to get suspended, but I think he made the right decision.
Simon, a little ruckus. Look, both teams are coming at each other here. You have to come out as a coach and protect your players. Listen, general run of play, I totally agree that if a coach leaves his area, he should be suspended. But in this type of situation, as a player, the only person I'm really going to listen to calm me down is not the referee. My players are already defending me. It's my coach. So I don't think, how can you suspend him for something like that? He hasn't infringed or anything with the Montreal Impact side.
But don't you think that things can escalate? If coaches are allowed to do that, and it's not black and white, leave your technical area, you're suspended. They're allowed to do that. It can possibly get worse.
Not in that situation.
It is true. It is a black and white rule. We saw it with Bruce Arena against the Portland Timbers late in the regular season when games really mattered. Yeah. He left his technical area and he was suspended. And when it comes down to it, you know, the ruling stands. Now you look at who is going to be on the bench. It's going to be goalkeeping coach Tim Hanley, a longtime assistant of Dominic Kinnear. He will be the guy manning the sidelines for the Houston Dynamo. Yesterday, our own Katie Witham spoke to him after practice.
Well, Tim, you're going to be taking over with Dom being suspended for Game 1 against the Red Bulls. I know he's been stressing a lot of things to the guys getting ready for this game. How have you guys prepared the Dynamo, though?
Well, first off, I'm not really taking over. We've always kind of had this thing where if for whatever reason Dominic's not around, it's sort of coached by committee. So we do the same things every single week, regardless of who the opponent is. We don't focus too much on anything specifically about them during our weeks in preparation. When we get right down to it, obviously our set pieces and things like that, we do a few things differently, but these guys have been here before. So as corny as it may sound, we just kind of go through the same things we've always done, and we haven't changed things because they've worked over the years.
I know the guys say that they feed a lot off of Dom's passion on the sideline. You mentioned you've been here before, you've missed him a few times before. Will they use this as maybe a little extra motivation or to your advantage going into this game?
Yeah, no, the guys don't need it. This group doesn't need any extra stuff. We've, all the talks, all the cheerleading things that maybe some other people do, we don't really do. I like to think that we have good characters, and these guys are men. So there's nothing more than the event that's needed to get these guys going. They understand it. We don't really say too much. It's none of the guys on our staff are cheerleaders in a way. It's like, you guys, you know what to do. You're professionals. Been here before. Just go about your business.
All right, Tim, appreciate it. We look forward to it. Good luck.
Great, thank you.
All right, guys. Well, windy day out there in Houston yesterday, but it looked nice. Katie, I hope you're enjoying the weather. When we look at this series, I mentioned it earlier, it has been one-sided this season. The New York Red Bulls going 3-0 against the Houston Dynamo. They ran up the score in several of those games. And when you look at the results, two of them happened at BBVA Compass Stadium, where the Houston Dynamo are supposed to be the top team. So when we look at this, Simon, is that indicative of what we expect to see now in this two-game series? Do you look at those results and you say, man, New York is a heavy favorite, or is it not that clear?
No, absolutely not. I don't think those results, I think, are thrown out the windows because there are too many extenuating circumstances here. If you look at the very first game, the first loss, the Houston Dynamo didn't have Bonia Garcia, Brad Davis. They're two playmakers. Then you move to the second game. That was at BBVA Compass Stadium, the 4-1 result. And you have the New York Red Bulls scoring 4 goals on a team that didn't have 4 or 5 starters, including, again, Davis and Bonia Garcia. And then you move to the very final game at BBVA Compass Stadium, the most recent one in October, the 3-0 game. And there were crazy circumstances there. And it started with Tim Cahill scoring a goal after 8 seconds, a record in MLS as far as the earliest goal from the start of the match. That was a great shot by Cahill. You see it here on 7 seconds practically. And look, that changes the game. The Red Bulls are able to sit back. Houston find it difficult to break through. And we saw how that game went, where one of the goals ping-pongs and falls to the Red Bulls players. So I think that game was very much an anomaly. We didn't see the same Dynamo team we saw against Montreal.
All right, speaking of that Dynamo team, we are going to see a strong team out there. Corey, take us through Dominic Kinnear's lineup for this match.
Yeah, it's going to be a very strong team, and it's the same starting team that was against the Montreal Impact. Of course, we have Tally Hall in goal from right to left, Sarkodie, Bobby Boswell, and for the injured Jermaine Taylor, Eric Bruner gets the nod again. Corey Ash is going to be on the left. What's very important for the Houston Dynamo is that Crevel has that same game that he had against the Impact, where he holds right in front of that back four and give Ricardo Clark, who's in front of him, that ability to go and attack. Brad Davis is going to be on the left, of course, Boniek Garcia on the right, and the two forwards that are in top form right now and are going to be very crucial for the Houston Dynamo side to succeed, Will Bruin and Giles Barnes.
All right, Simon, as much as you say it doesn't really count, those 3 games didn't matter during the regular season, right, there's also plenty to look at when you dissect those games. What does Houston need to do differently in order to make it a series here?
Well, I look at that the most recent game because a lot of these Dynamo starters were playing in that game. And I think we're going to see what the Red Bulls did in that game, which is sit back. I think you're going to see them play for the counter as well. And so first, they had to resort to the long ball, which sometimes did not deliver the results they wanted. Then, not enough players in the box for Houston. There, you only see one player on that cross. They got to commit more. We saw that against Montreal. Then, because New York are packed in, they try to force it into midfield. When you do that, easy giveaways. And look at the Red Bulls, how quick they are to turn that into an opportunity. And you see it there. Give the ball to Leon Delan-Henry. They're going to create chances. Then lastly, the Houston Dynamo need to be able to switch quickly. They did it against Montreal because that's how you create spaces for your attack. And if you're slow with it, as we saw against New York, it's not good enough. I think, though, we saw improvements from the Dynamo. I think they were buzzing. They're a different team. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. So I don't expect to see what we saw in that last game against the Red Bulls from the Dynamo.
What we're going to find out, though, is was that more Houston Dynamo buzzing, or was it more Montreal really dropping the level there? Yeah. We're going to find that out against the New York Red Bulls today. Sure. We said that they kind of turned a corner against Montreal. Corey, Will Bruin having a very big game, and Ricardo Clark playing a big part in that for the Dynamo.
Well, both of them stepped up to the plate. Will Bruin, before that Montreal game, said, listen, I should have 15 goals this season. And he took that upon himself, went in there with confidence, and proved that he scored 2 goals. He's going to have to come up huge on a big stage. Exact thing for Ricardo Clark. We've seen a Ricardo Clark in that Montreal Impact game that we didn't see in previous matches. And, well, Warren Crevel gave him that freedom to express himself and to attack. And he just felt it like, he had that ability to do it. So I think he's going to have to show himself on the bigger stage against the New York Red Bulls. And, this is a game for him, honestly, to step up to the plate and show why he needs to be at least given a look on the national team.
You guys are going to bring up this Ricardo Clark to the national team argument again. I'll tell you what, Mike Pecky, the New York Red Bulls head coach, speaking of the Houston Dynamo, said, look, this is a good team. And he actually came out and said, we are the underdogs. While the score lines were very favorable to us during the regular season, it was a bit lucky, so I believe we're the underdog going into Houston this weekend. Now, this is a lot of the same stuff we see during the playoffs. Coach trying to get in his own players' heads, coaches trying to get in the other team's heads. I can't imagine anyone really looks at the Red Bulls, the Supporters' Shield champions, as the big underdogs going to Houston. But maybe it makes a little sense that he's saying Houston's a better team than we thought. Simon, take us through who's Mike Pecky going to trot out there against the Dynamo?
And it's a lineup a lot of people thought that he would line up with. First off, in goal, Luis Robles is there, overcame the little knock he picked up against Chicago. In the back line, it's this new look back line we're seeing from the Red Bulls. Very effective, though, with Carney, Sakagya, Olave, and Holgerson, the center back converted to right back. In the midfield, you have the diamond formation. Dax McCarty at holding mid, flanked by Johnny Steele and Eric Alexander. Peggy Luyindala at attacking midfield, but Eric Alexander is the big change there. I think many expected Lloyd Sam, who seemed to cement a spot in the starting lineup. Then up top, Tim Cahill and Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry, no surprise. Tim Cahill now a fixture at forward, a full-time forward for the Red Bulls.
Well, interestingly here, if you were following the Red Bulls early in the season, you had Peggy Luyindula, who couldn't do anything right for the life of him, couldn't score goals, was missing opportunities in front of the net, but Mike Pecky seems to have found the right role for him. He's moved him back to more of a playmaker, been able to push Tim Cahill and Thierry Henry a little higher up the field. Corey, this seems to have been what maybe unlocked the Red Bulls' full potential here at the end of the season.
Yeah, well, if people have really tracked his career, in Europe, he wasn't really a consistent, prolific goal scorer. And when he came to the New York Red Bulls, they tried to make him that second forward to play up top with Henry, and it didn't ultimately work. Cahill was in great form at the moment, so they had to push him behind and be the creator like he is. And it's ultimately proved to work out for them.
And when you look at his strengths are he is technically excellent with the ball. Yeah. He's creative. He has some vision as well. So by putting him in attacking midfield, even though he doesn't come as an attacking midfielder, he's a forward by name, by putting him there, you're getting the best qualities from him.
And I think what you're seeing is you're getting the best out of Tim Cahill and Thierry Henry now with that freedom to think more about the attack. And we've seen, I mean, Cahill obviously scoring that goal in Houston in only 7 or 8 seconds. That is what Tim Cahill can do as a forward in MLS.
And yeah, he can worry about just driving into the box and heading goals in, which is his specialty. And look, for Henry, you saw frustrations show up on the field with him when it was all about him and the ball coming to him and him having to do everything. And you saw it weigh on him. And I think now that he's relieved a little bit of that, you're seeing a happier Henry. A happier Henry means a more creative Henry who scores goals like that.
All right, well, when you talk about the New York Red Bulls in the playoffs, it's not a pretty story. I mean, we've seen them time and time again find a way to lose in the playoffs. When you look at, I mean, I would go back plenty of different stories throughout the years, including going to San Jose, getting a win, coming back to New York, and not being able to finish it off. Last year, we saw a great example. Everything going their way. You had the snowstorm. Now, all of a sudden, they have the second game at home. They get a result in D.C., they come back to New York, and this couldn't have gone any worse. You have the encroachment call that would have put New York Red Bulls up 2-0 in the series, pretty much done DC United in, and it's Thierry Henry of all people who gets called for the encroachment. Cooper has to take the kick again, and it's saved. The New York Red Bulls have in the past, they've found a way to lose in the playoffs. Corey, I have to ask you, is there something in their heads? Is there a mentality about it where this sticks with you over time?
I mean, it's simple. It's one thing. It's complacency. They've always had that attitude where we're the better team. We're the top team. We're the ones that are going to go out there and dominate the game without worrying about their opponent. They can't do that against the Houston Dynamo. And I think that's why Mike Pecky made that comment in terms of saying we're the underdogs. He's trying to transmit that through the team. He knows Henry and Cahill will give them it all, but it's the other young players who don't really understand the magnitude of this game. Saying that we're the underdogs is saying that we need to go out there and fight because Houston Dynamo are going to give them a battle. So that mentality of complacency has to leave their head for them to succeed.
But I think Mike Pecky has done a great job at eliminating all this past, not only by winning the Supporters' Shield, but infusing a different type of belief and mentality. So I find it hard to believe they're going to go back to the Bakke days and their runs in the playoffs under Hans Bakke. I think it's a new slate, but I do think they saw a Houston Dynamo team. There's this myth in MLS about the Dynamo being a playoff team. And it comes true in past years. Then here we are again, and they watch that game. You know, they were all sitting around the room watching that game. They're back. And I think the New York Red Bulls, I'm curious to see if they take the field as if they've just seen a ghost. Because that was scary, what we saw out of the Houston Dynamo on Wednesday.
All right, we saw the lineup. When the Red Bulls do take the field, they're going to have their goalkeeper, Luis Robles, in the net. Now, he was a question mark because he did get banged up at the end of the last game. Katie Witham is down in Houston with an update on Robles.
Thanks, guys. Well, it's another beautiful day here in BBVA Compass Stadium. 69 degrees right now, sunshine, and it's going to stay like this the rest of the game. Ideal weather for this matchup today. Now, the big news has really been coming out of New York. Specifically, their starting keeper, Luis Robles, injured his left knee in the final game of the season against the Chicago Fire. That was nearly 2 weeks ago. He did not train or step on the field at all until 2 days ago. Now, I had a chance to speak with Luis yesterday. He told me that he did start training, but when he was on the field, it was very limited. When I spoke to him yesterday, also of note was the fact that he had that left knee very taped up. Now, he did tell me that he feels good, is 100%, and as of right now, guys, he's in the starting lineup to start today for the New York Red Bulls. For now, we'll send it back to you.
We talk about all the set pieces. We talk about the balls served in by the Houston Dynamo. If you have a goalkeeper who's not at 100%, that could make things a little dicey, especially as a center back. Maybe you're thinking twice, is my keeper going to get this or do I have to get it, Corey? I have to imagine that when you're thinking, my goalkeeper's banged up behind me, it maybe weighs on you during a game.
My goalkeeper says he's banged up, but listen, he's out there. He says he wants to get the start. He says he could play. So to me, he's 100%. I'm not changing my form of play. So I'm giving him that utmost confidence to go out there and do what he has to do. I'm not changing any style. This is too big of a game and at too high of a magnitude to worry about, is he going to come out? Is he not going to come out? I'm going to go and control my box, essentially, and know that my goalkeeper by me said he can play this game. He's going to be at 100% and have the full confidence in him.
All right, you see the New York Red Bulls warming up for this game. Got to ask you one more thing. The whole Henrying Twitter fascination that came out, that all started against the Houston Dynamo. Now, doesn't seem like too big of a deal, but I'm just wondering, do you think this is something that maybe sticks in the mind of a couple Houston guys saying, were we shown up on that during that game?
I believe it. I know that took on a life of its own, that goal celebration by Thierry Henry, where he has his arm up against the post and people were creating all these images out of it, and he did it again in a subsequent game. But if I'm the Houston Dynamo, that's showmanship. You are showing me up. It's disrespectful in a way, especially when you're doing it in my box against my goal. There's something that it just rubs me the wrong way about it. And I do think there will be some players who will mention that in the locker room. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. Trust me. Don't be surprised you see an early 2-foot tackle on him in the first couple of minutes.
All right, guys. Well, we're wrapping up here. I want to get your predictions for this game. Tell me what you think is going to happen here. Give me a scoreline and how it's going to develop.
Hard-fought match, but if Houston Dynamo comes out the same way they did against Montreal Impact, Houston 2-1.
I'm going to add a goal to that, 3-1. I think when the Houston Dynamo start scoring goals, the Red Bulls will start coming out of their shell, open more spaces for the Dynamo, and I have no doubt that the Dynamo, despite playing in midweek, will have that energy to be buzzing from minute one, and they're going to blitz New York, I believe.
I agree with you that Houston is going to come out strong. I expect them to get the first goal, but I think New York over time is going to get the equalizer. I'm predicting a 1-1 result and headed back to New York. It would be a good result for New York, but we've mentioned it. They have not dealt with those very well in recent playoff history. That's all we have. Remember, you can see this game 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in to NBC, the network. That's all we have here on MLSsoccer.com's Playoff Central, presented by Samsung Galaxy.